Hello fellow Prima lovers, and welcome back to the Prima Marketing channel. I'm Adrienne Boese, better known online as Alice Scraps Wonderland. Today I'm sharing how to pour and paint resin mold casts by showing my process for creating these scarab beetle brooches. As always, you can find all of the supplies used listed in the description box below. Let's get into this tutorial. I'll be using the Redesign with Prima Midnight Muses mold to create my scarab beetle brooches. I just love all of the different molds in this set, all of which are perfect for any dark academia project. I like to use the Alumilite Amazing Casting Resin in white, which cures in 10 minutes. To turn these beetles into brooches, you'll also want to get some Brooch Pin Backs ready. When working with resin, you should always wear gloves, a face mask, and work in a well-ventilated area. Resin creates an exothermic reaction as it cures, so it will put off both heat and chemicals. I also like to protect my work surface with one of my old non-stick craft mats. When I pour resin, I always like to pour for a bunch of projects at one time, or have some extra molds on hand to pour off extra resin so it doesn't go to waste. So while this project is only going to use 3 of these beetles in the Midnight Muses mold set, you'll see me cast quite a few other molds in this process. To create resin casts, you will pour equal parts of the A and B solutions. I use separate measuring cups for both solutions, which come with the resin kit. Then I pour from the measuring cup into a paper cup for mixing. I stir with one of the provided popsicle sticks for at least 10 seconds, then bend the top of the paper cup to create a spout and fill the 3 beetles that I want, then pour off any of the excess into other molds. If you see any large air bubbles, you can use a pin or needle to bring it to the surface and pop it. Once I've poured all of the resin, I set a timer for 10 minutes. You'll see that the resin begins to turn white as it cures. To make the brooches, I want to mix another small amount of resin to attach the pin backs. 7 minutes into the cure time for this first bit of resin, I mix up another little bit of resin, then place the pin backs onto the beetles with the aid of a pair of tweezers. I pour a small amount on the pin backs, using the popsicle stick to help spread the resin over the pin back. And then I pour off any excess resin again and set another timer for 10 minutes. When the first 10-minute timer goes off, I remove the cast from the extra mold during the first pour. I always like to pull the mold away from the resin cast. Some of them pop out pretty easily, but for others, you may need to flip the mold over and roll it off of the casts. After my last 10-minute timer goes off, I can remove all of the resin casts from the Midnight Muses mold. Your resin casts will need to sit for another 15 minutes to an hour, depending on your climate, to fully harden and cure. If your casts are still soft, place them back in the mold to help them keep their shape as they finish curing. My beetles are pretty hard, so I check that the pin back mechanism works, then place them back into the mold for another 15 minutes. Now for the painting. I'm starting off by priming my resin casts with black gesso. Gesso has tooth to it, which helps it stick to non-porous surfaces and allows you to paint with other mediums on top of it. During this painting process, I always like to have multiple cups of water on hand to wash my paintbrushes in order to keep them nice. Today, I'm using a small silicone water cup and the water well system. It has a bottle of water attached to it, and it fills the reservoir that you see in the video. After washing a brush, I can press the blue button to empty the dirty water into the container below, and it will automatically fill with fresh water. For these casts, I paint both the front and the back of each beetle twice with gesso for good coverage. I usually don't paint the backs of mold casts unless you will see the back of it. To add color to these beetles, I'm using several Finnabair Metallique and Opal Magic acrylic paints, plus the black gold wax. The larger beetle gets its shell and head painted with the dark forest acrylic paint. This is an older color and not available from Prima anymore, so if you don't have it on hand, I think a good alternative color is the Golden Moss Metallique acrylic paint. The smallest beetle is painted with the Stormy Ocean acrylic paint. You can see I'm using a smaller paintbrush for the smaller beetle. You want to make sure that you are always selecting a brush size that works for your project. And the last beetle gets painted with the Dragonfly acrylic paint. You can see that I'm doing pretty full coverage and not worrying about texture here. Trust the process. I'll be adding that detail in later. I'm modeling these beetles after the gorgeous iridescent chromatic ones. In nature, you see where the light hits a high or rounded part, there is a change in color. Often it has a bit of a warm golden glow. So I add that in with a bit of watered down rose gold Opal Magic acrylic paint to all three beetles. If I get a little too much liquid or paint on my beetle, I use a microfiber cloth to blot the excess off. To highlight the texture of the legs, I use a small brush to apply the black gold metallic wax. I also add a bit of this wax to the shell of the beetles where I want to darken that rose gold glow. To make these beetles even more realistic, I go back in with some watered down black gesso, applying it to the crevices and deeper points, then dab off the excess. This is also a good time to go back in and touch up any areas where you got metallic paint that should just be black gesso. And I did this off camera, but I also painted the backs of the beetles with the Raven Black Sparks paint to make the back sides look more finished. I've stuck these brooches into a foam mat to help me with the next steps. I want them to be super glossy like an enamel pin, so I paint the bodies, eyes, and legs with Finn's soft gloss gel. It's at this point that I decided the large beetle got a little too dark and black, so I touch it up with a bit of the forest green paint. Then I go over it again with more of the soft gloss gel. Every piece of jewelry needs some pretty bling. Each of these beetles gets a crystal. I use the black and iridescent ones from the Magic Spell collection and a dark green glitter one from the North Pole collection. I remove the sticky back off each crystal with an awl, paint a bit of the soft gloss gel where I want the gem, then place it carefully into the gel. And then I add some smaller gems in black, smoky gray, and emerald to these beetles using the same soft gloss gel. These are so small though, it's easier to just leave the sticky backs on these gems, and I'll let this process play out a bit for you. Once you are done applying gems, let these sit to cure for an hour or so, and then your sparkly beetle brooches are ready to wear or gift. Don't forget to like this video and to subscribe to the Prima Marketing channel for more amazing inspiration from the Prima Marketing design team. And until next time, happy crafting!